Hello again, fellow RC enthusiasts. It's your host, Tom Cogswell from SpektrumRC and Horizon Hobby, here for another Spektrum YouTube video. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the new Spektrum Smart S155 G2 charger. Now, the G2 just stands for the latest G2 interface. It does still charge G1 smart batteries, and like the other smart G2 chargers, it will charge non-smart batteries as well. So your third-party brand e-flite, Onyx, other brands of batteries, as long as you have the adapter, you'll be able to charge it. So it's not just for smart. I just like to reiterate, it is a all-around great charger for pretty much all your RC needs. So let's real quickly do a quick overview of this charger. So out of the box, you're going to get a power cord, which I have plugged in here, and you're going to get the charger. The charger is a 1 to 4S LiPo lithium high voltage lithium ion charger. So it has a balance port on the front for 4S charging, and it also has the ability to charge nickel metals and lead acid batteries, pretty much anything of the popular variety of batteries nowadays that are used in RC models and vehicles. One of the really cool things about this charger is that it does have this little slidey port on the front that allows you to switch between IC5 or EC5. That's this port here will accept EC5 connectors and IC5 connectors, and then this one for IC3 and EC3 connectors. Really cool, nice and handy. That's one of the cool perks with these G2 chargers is that we've been putting this sliding port on the front. Another thing on the front that you'll notice is it says USB upgrade. This USB port is a micro USB port, and that is for updating the firmware on this charger. So if there are updates for this charger, they'll be posted on the product page and in other places for Spektrum updates. So when you get this charger, go ahead and check out the product page for some updates. Also have some helpful links in the description below if you need to find these updaters. So real quick, let's go over the 4 buttons on the face here. This is your interface to the charger. That's essentially all you've got, but it's more than enough. You've got a back button, you've got a up and down selection button, and you have an enter or start button. The back button is what allows you to activate sleep mode, which is really cool. So right now, my charger is in sleep mode. I have it plugged in, it's receiving power from my wall outlet, but it's not on. Sleep mode allows you to turn off and on the charger by one of these buttons, just like this. So once you're on the main screen here, you have to be in the dashboard part, or like the main screen with the flashing light, or the flashing question mark battery symbol. You're going to press and hold the back button, and it will turn off like that. And if you want to turn it back on, simply hit any of the other buttons and it will turn back on. So now that we've kind of gone over the outside of the charger, let's talk about the inside of the charger. So right here, we're on the main screen. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so you guys can get a little bit better, more familiar with this charger. All right, so now that we've gone over the kind of the outside of the charger, let's talk more about the interface of the charger. So we're gonna go ahead and get into the menus here. So without a battery plugged in, these are the options that you have. These buttons don't do anything, but if you press and hold this button here, that's the enter button, you'll be able to get into this menu. This is essentially the charge settings menu as it displays at the top, where you can change the parameters of charging. So let's go through the options that you have here on the charge settings menu. You have tasks at the top, but really there's only one task that this charger can do. Higher end chargers will be able to do a discharge option as well as a storage charge option. One of the great things about smart batteries is you really don't need to storage charge them because they do it automatically by themselves. The next thing down is the battery chemistry. This one allows you to change the battery type. So if you're using this for a non-smart battery, you need to double check that you're selecting the correct battery type between lithium high voltage for LiHV, LiPo, LiPo, lithium ion, LiION, lithium iron, LiFE, that's more or less for receiver packs. PB is for lead acid batteries, and NiMH is for nickel metal batteries. So, like I said, essentially any kind of popular type of RC battery you can charge with your S155 charger. Next down is the cells. So if you're on LiPo or lithium ion or any of the Li types of batteries, you can change it between 1S for 1 cell up to 4S for 4 cell battery charging. Next down is the current setting. So like I said earlier, you can go all the way up to 5 amps with this charger, and you can go all the way down to 0.1 amps. Next one down is going to be the voltage selection. This allows you to change the end peak voltage of the battery, so you can adjust it to where each cell will peak at. So 4.2 volts is the default, and that's going to be the peak voltage of the battery when it's fully charged. And that's 4.2 volts per cell. So if you're charging a 2-cell battery, it's going to be 8.4 volts fully charged. So just kind of keep that in mind. I understand that this is probably going to be a charger that a lot of beginners use. So learning a lot about this LiPo kind of chemistry and how they work, this is going to be a good charger for that. And then you'll have your start button. So if you had a battery plugged in, you would go ahead and hit start. The next options down are going to be smart battery settings, which we're going to go over later. But when you see an option that is grayed out instead of orange like you have here, that means that it's not selectable. So if I hit the enter button, nothing happens. And that's because I don't have a smart battery plugged in. System settings. This menu, and any other menu that has 2 arrows pointing to the right side like this, means that it's going to go into another menu that has more options for you to customize. Let's go into system settings. In system settings, at the very top, you're going to have backlight. You're going to be able to change that between a low, medium, and high. And what that does is it changes the brightness of the screen itself, essentially. Next one down is the volume option. Should be fairly easy to understand, but essentially it is how loud the beeps are when you go through the different tones and things like that. And when it finishes charging, how loud the alarm tone is. Speaking of the alarm tone, that is what completion tone is for. So when your battery is done charging, you're going to get a completion tone. It's going to be just like this. Completion tone is either single or repeat. On the single option, what that does is it means that when the battery is done charging and the charge cycle is complete, it will only do the alarm 1 time. Repeat, on the other hand, will keep repeating that alarm, I want to say every 1 minute or so. It might annoy your friends, but it helps you remember that you have a battery that's done charging when you are either preoccupied with something else, and it kind of is a reminder. I personally like using repeat, but I can see how people would like to use single. Language should be fairly obvious what that is. It's the different language options that you have available to you. You have all 5 of these that you can change it between. And then auto charge is another option that essentially, and we'll go through this a little bit later, but when you plug in a smart battery, it will automatically recognize what the smart battery is, what settings to charge it to, and automatically start charging on its own. But if you don't want that to happen, you can turn that off. It is on by default, but it is an option that you can turn off if you like. Next down is the self-test option. Self-test allows you to test the charger. The only way to use self-test is if there is no battery plugged in. It will give you a warning if there is a battery plugged in, but essentially it goes through the battery charger and tests all of its functions, and it'll tell you if there's a problem, and in some cases it fixes the issues if a test is not passed. Calibration is the next option down. But really, it's not for a very easy function for people to use, and it's grayed out right here. And the reason for that is because I don't have a battery plugged in. If I were to plug a battery in to the main port and the balance port, calibration would become accessible. But I honestly wouldn't recommend messing around with it if you don't know what you're doing. If you feel like your charger is not calibrated and it's not fully peaking a battery or charging it properly, I wouldn't recommend going into calibration and trying to play around with the numbers. I would just instead contact our product support team and have them walk you through on how to send it into our service center so that they can calibrate it properly, because they have the right equipment. Next one down is system info. System info is just that. It's essentially the hardware version, the bootloader version, which is BL. OS would be the firmware version that's currently on the charger, and PN, I'm honestly not sure what that is. But these are numbers that we might ask for if you were to call in and had any issues. Next down is charger history. This one will allow you to look at how many charge cycles you've charged today, how many in total on this charger. I think that's a helpful thing so you can know how many batteries have been charged with your charger. the charger's temperature, so that's the internal temperature of the charger, and how much input wattage is being pulled through the internal power supply. Next up, let's talk about charging a smart battery on your smart S155 G2 charger and using the smart battery settings menu. Alright, for this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to charge a smart G2 battery like we have here. It's a 5000 milliamp soft case pack, 3-cell G2 battery. And we're also going to charge this 4000 milliamp 2S G1 battery. This is a receiver pack battery, so that's why it has this extra lead for your receiver pack on it. But we're going to go ahead and go through how to charge both of these types of batteries. So let's start with this G2 battery. As I showed you before, this one has an IC5 connector, and you will want to slide this little door up here to the IC5 port. Because this is a G2 battery, I'm just going to plug it in all the way. Make sure you plug it so it's all the way firmly set in. It doesn't need a balance lead, so you just got to plug the main connector all the way in, and it'll say initializing smart charge, or initiating, and now it's charging. So that's part of that auto charge function that we talked about a moment ago. So now that it's charging on its own, let's go through some of the main screen's functionality. You've got your charge rate, so that's how fast it's charging it, the amperage, the amount of capacity that it has put into the pack so far, so this isn't the max capacity, it's just what it's put into it, and the charge time remaining, so it's an estimated 9 minutes left until the battery is fully charged. If we hit the scroll button down, it'll show us the cell voltage of each cell. No balance lead, but the G2 batteries communicate this cell voltage data and balance the battery internally with the pack, so you can kind of monitor that here. Also on this page, you're going to see the total voltage of the battery at the top there, as well as the 96th percentile, saying that it's 96% all the way full, which is pretty much charged. Next page down is the internal resistance page. It will take a moment for the charger to calculate internal resistance, and really the longer the battery's been charging, the more accurate it will be. So that's why it takes a little while for these battery numbers to populate. Another thing about the main dashboard screen is it tells you the type of battery that's plugged in here, and the battery bar at the top is essentially how much capacity is in the battery at that time. So 96% and pretty much full. Next up, let's talk about the things that you can change while charging. So if you press and hold the play button here, essentially, you'll get these options. You can change the current of the battery, you can stop the charge, or you can check out the battery's history. So let's check out the battery history on this pack. This battery's had 26 cycles, its internal temperature is 114 degrees, and that's about it. What else can we do? To check out the smart battery settings, you do have to stop the charge, so let's do that. Press and hold this button to go into this menu again, and we're going to go down to smart battery settings. So this one here, and you'll see that it now has an orange highlight to it instead of gray like earlier, and that's because we have a smart battery plugged in. Let's check this out. So right here at the top, you're going to see the auto storage option. 72 hours is the default, but that can be changed between 240 hours, if you go all the way up, all the way down to 12 hours, or off. You can turn auto storage off if you like. So if I set this to 12 hours, so what that means is that after 12 hours of this battery sitting fully charged in your case, not plugged into anything, the microchip inside will automatically start to discharge the battery to the storage voltage setting. So auto storage is one of the great things about smart batteries. It helps keep battery maintenance in check, no guesswork on your part, just does it automatically. So essentially all these settings that here are what's saved to the battery. The charge current is the current that the battery will automatically go to when it plugs into a smart charger. The charge voltage is the peak voltage of each cell when you plug it into a smart charger. You can change this down to 4.1 if you like, or 4.10, or keep it at 4.2, which is the default. That's when a LiPo battery cell is fully charged. You will notice that this is a 3-cell battery, so you do have to kind of multiply that in your head by 3 if you want to know what the fully charged battery. So that would be 12.6 volts when this battery is fully charged. Next one down is storage voltage. So this is the voltage that the auto storage is going to bring it down to. By default, it's 3.9. You can change that all the way down to 3.7. These options are perfectly safe no matter what parameter you're in. Next one down, as we already covered, is battery history. It's the same thing that we saw earlier. And then fault log. So I'm not sure if this one's got any faults. We don't have any faults with this one, but with the next battery we can see that. And then you have battery update. Battery update is an option that's only going to be available for G2 batteries. And it's only going to be needed if the battery plugs in and it needs a battery update. One of the beautiful things about battery updates is if you have a smart charger that's up to date and you plug in a battery that's out of date, it'll automatically ping the charger to see what firmware's on there and ask you if you want to update it right when you plug it in. So there's really no need to go to this menu unless you cancel that update and you want to do it later. So as we could do here, if you click on battery update, it'll ask you to update it and it'll do it for you. Again, you don't really need to update G1 batteries. In fact, it's going to be grayed out when you go to that menu. G2 batteries are really the only ones that need updates, and very few of them need it. But in some cases you might. This is the option for that. Alright, and my battery update is complete. You just got to press a button to exit, and now it's ready to go. Let's go ahead and charge a smart G1 battery. So now that we've gone through how to charge a G2 battery, like our 5000 milliamp G2 pack, let's go ahead and show you how to charge a G1 smart battery. So a G1 battery has a balance lead on it. When you're charging a G1 battery, it is best to plug the balance lead in, as I demonstrate here. Also, this one's an IC3 connector, so just like the other one, we want to slide our little port down, so we got the IC3 connector in, and we're going to plug that in. When you plug in just the main lead, it will recognize that it is a smart battery, but it's going to remind you that you need to insert the balance lead. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, and then it's going to say, oh good, you inserted the balance lead, let's initiate the smart charging. So now that the battery has automatically started charging, because it's a smart battery, I will get all the data like I did on my G2 battery. We'll get the current that's going in, the capacity that's gone into it so far. You got the battery bar at the top with the info about the battery and the estimated time remaining. Again, you also have, if you press the down key, the cell voltages and the total voltage of the battery with the percentage. But you're also going to get the internal resistance of the pack. These values are a great way for you to dictate how healthy your battery is. A couple things to keep in mind is that IR, or internal resistance, can fluctuate. It will fluctuate if the battery's cold, it'll be a higher number, but really what you're aiming to get is as low a number as possible. So talking about these numbers, in my professional opinion, if it's under 12, 15, you're probably pretty good for, most everyday RC applications. But if you have a more demanding application, the lower the number, the better. Even around the number where these numbers are in the 1 range is about as good as you're going to get. Most batteries are going to be around, brand new 1 to 2 to 3, and this number is going to go up as the battery gets older and gets used. If this battery gets really high, I'd say like in the 20s to 30s or even like the 40s, that's a good sign that the battery's on its way out. Now, there are a lot of varying opinions on internal resistance and the science behind it. Feel free to comment below on your thoughts on it so other people can learn. This is a community, we all learn from each other. But really, again, this is a great tool to use just to kind of dictate the health of the battery. And again, as it's charging, that number will become more accurate. At first, it's going to be kind of high, and it's going to go down as it charges. All right, so speaking of our G1 battery, I know this one's got some fault logs, so let's check out some fault logs. So to check the fault log on a smart battery, to get to the fault log, like we did with the G2, but the G2 battery didn't have any faults on it, we're going to stop the charge. So you can either do that by pressing the back arrows or going to stop. So we'll go to stop here. You're going to hit enter, hold enter. And you're going to go to smart battery settings. You're going to go down past battery history and go to fault log. So we've got a total of 5 faults on this battery. I haven't really treated it very well, have I? Fault 1 is going to be the oldest fault, so essentially the furthest from today. And then fault 5 is going to be the most recent fault. Unfortunately, there isn't any kind of a date in the time. I think that would be helpful, maybe in the future. So we've got fault 1, and you'll see it says overcharge, over discharge, and over temp. Overcharge, none there, that's good. But I did over discharges cell 1 and cell 2. So C1 and C2 stand for cell 1 and cell 2 were over discharged. It also got too hot, so the battery overtemped and it flipped that flag. If we scroll down, we use the down key, we can see what fault 2 was. Oh, I overcharged it at that point. An overcharge is going to be if it goes above 4.2 volts on this battery. If it was a LiPo high voltage, it would be 4.35 if it was overcharged beyond that voltage. And then overtemp usually indicates that the battery got above, I think, 150 degrees. And then over discharge, let's see if we got one that's, oh, in this fault 5, I overcharged it and over discharged it. So these faults are probably why my internal resistance is a little high on this pack. The over discharge means that you brought these cells below 3 volts per cell. If you go below 3.0 volts per cell, that can potentially damage the cells on the battery. And that's the fault log menu. Again, like I said, with a smart G1 battery, like we have plugged in here, there is no option to update the battery because G1 batteries don't have any updates. It's only G2 at this point. And that's how you charge a smart G1 battery. Let's move on to how to charge a non-smart third-party battery. Alright, for this non-smart battery demonstration, we're going to use this e-flite 3S 3000 milliamp pack. Now these ones is where you're going to have to do the most work because it's not going to automatically start the charge for you. One of the perks of going smart. So just like your G1 battery, you're going to want to plug in the main lead. This is an EC3 connector, so we're going to leave it on the IC3 port here. Plug it in, and then also plug in the balance lead. A quick note on the balance lead is you want to make sure that the negative lead, which is normally a black wire on batteries, is all the way to the left. Alright, so we've got it plugged in here. Let's zoom in to take a better look. And we're ready. So to start a non-smart charge, you're going to press and hold this button here to get into the charge settings menu. And you're going to want to double check that you're set on battery type LiPo. If you're charging a LiPo, you want to make sure and double check that you're using the correct battery type for your battery. You've got lithium high voltage to choose from, LiPo, lithium ion, LiHV, PB for lead acid, and nickel metal for nickel metal packs. This is a LiPo, so we're going to choose LiPo. Double check that the cells is set correctly. Now, since I plugged in a balance lead, it could tell that this is a 3S battery, but you want to make sure that that is correct. You can choose between 4S and 1S. Current-wise, you're going to want to look at the battery's label to see how many milliamps are in the battery. So with this being a 3000 milliamp pack, I'll bring it up here. So with this being a 3000 milliamp pack, we actually want to set this one to 3 amps. In some cases, you'll have batteries that actually list the maximum charge rate on the label itself, so that's always helpful. But if that's not displayed, take the milliamperage and move the decimal place up 3 points to get the amperage that you're going to charge at. So we're going to charge it at 3 amps. So we want to change this current to 3. Like that. And then voltage, this should be automatic to 4.2, but if you want to go lower, you can. I'm going to leave it at 4.2 and hit start. Here it'll start charging our non-smart battery. It's going to put the charge rate up to 3 amps as I specified. It's going to tell us the capacity that is being put into the pack, or has been put into the pack rather, and then the total charge time. So if you had watched the part where we were charging a smart battery, this was charge time remaining. Because this isn't a smart battery, it doesn't know how much time is remaining, so it's just giving you an amount of time that the battery has been charging. If we scroll down, you'll see the voltage of each cell, the total voltage at the top, the estimated percentage of the battery that's charged, and then if you go down, you'll get the internal resistance of the battery. Again, these are really high values, but I would assume after we start charging this battery over a little bit of time, those values are going to go down. Because like I said, these values will be more accurate the longer the battery is charged. But yeah, those are really high numbers. If my battery was at these numbers, after the charge, I probably would say, yeah, this battery's not really suited for use in like an airplane or something. Otherwise, the only other thing that you can do is press and hold the start button, and you can adjust the current if you see fit. And if you want to end the charge, you can hit stop here, or you can press the back button right there. And that's how you charge a non-smart battery on your smart S155 Smart G2 charger. And to finish off this overview, I do want to recommend a couple of charge leads. So this one is the SPM XCA311 adapter. I'll leave a link for it in the description below. But essentially what this does is it allows you to plug this into your charger, your smart charger, and it puts these two 4mm bullet leads coming off the end of it, and then allows you to plug in other types of third-party adapters and battery plugs into your charger. Instead of having to try to change the connectors to IC3, this is an easy way to charge like your XG60s, your JSTs, your Dean's connector batteries, if you haven't gone fully IC3 yet. Another adapter that I would definitely recommend, and this is only if you're going to be flying or using the smaller batteries like this 4S450 that's got this smaller smart connector on it. This is the IC2 plug on this guy. Let's see if I can get it in focus. So this is an IC2 plug, right? IC2 plug is a little bit smaller, well, a lot bit smaller than the IC3 plug that is standard on your smart charger. And to adapt to that, for charging it, you're going to need this guy. This is the XCA320, and this is for charging IC2 leads. So what you do with this one is you plug it in to the main IC3 lead. You've got IC2 on the other end. So we'll just plug in our IC2 battery here, and after a moment, it'll initiate the smart charging process for this battery. So definitely pick up this adapter if you are charging IC2 batteries, and for anything that is XT or JST or anything not IC3 connector, grab one of these so you can use it with your third-party adapters and plugs. Alright, RC enthusiasts, that's the overview and some demonstrations on how to use the Spektrum Smart S155 G2 charger from Spektrum. If you guys have any questions or comments or suggestions for more how-to videos that you'd like to see me do, please leave those in the comments below. And if you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the Spektrum how-to videos and content that we put up here on YouTube. This is Tom signing off. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.